intellectual property and interns, and I am opening up the floor for questions, because I know that you guys have a lot of specific ones.
What about electronic signatures?
Yeah, that's a good
What
point.
is that, like, can you send your contract to someone, can they electronically sign it, or is that
Like
not?
putting in a box.
They can electronically.
So they can just type their name and it's all good, or how does that work?
That's what I do.
In terms of,
Like, instead of printing it out, signing it and mailing it back to you, and they just, like, how can they electronic?
Well, like there's some
There's some
like
services.
woofoo.com or whatever where you can just have them click the box saying that they are agreeing to the terms of that agreement, and that's
right. I know I've
legitimate,
used
okay.
DocuSign for a number of real estate contracts. There's a couple of other services out there.
So you just have to use like a website.
Well, there's those, and I know the US Copyright Office just makes you put S in between 2 slashes and then type your name, which seems a little crazy. If you're gonna do that and have them do that though, I would make sure that they write under that they are the ones that typed their name and like initial it or something. I would always prefer an actual signature or a DocuSign signature person, just to get
There's
more
a
tied in.
app on your phone that you can get. I have Easy Release, like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys already mentioned that, but
What's it called?
Easy Release. And it's just a app on your phone and you type in the client's information. It allows you to take a picture of them and then they can sign it right there. And then it'll send them the contract via email. And then you also have it saved. I have mine saved to like my Dropbox. It automatically saves to my Dropbox folder. That way I have them all, like all of my clients.
And I think DocuSign has an app as well. I know
Yeah,
I
I think they do.
have 2 or 3 apps I know on both my phone and on my iPad. So it's kind of, if you do a signature app or something like that, in your search, it'll pop up. And there's free ones and then there's paid ones as well.
So, what about like if they just like check the box saying yes, I agree? Like that's
That's
enough.
okay.
That's okay. All right.
As long as it's sending them an email and you get an email and they're not fighting it up, the next day saying, wait a minute, I never signed anything, then it should be good. Does this make sense? You want to make sure that if they're signing it, like let's say somebody signs something on my iPad today, you would want to make sure that a copy of it is sent to
To them as well.
so that if for some reason Caroline Seavey signs off on the contract and it goes to Caroline Seavey's email address, and the real Caroline Seavey calls me and says, wait a minute, Kathy, I didn't see you yesterday. I didn't sign any contract. You can head that off pretty early.
You have those, like, you go to the Monon Center before you do the wave rider, you have to sign the release, and it's all on iPads, and then it goes right to your email that you signed, and it's a release, and you have to do, they have those waivers, and you have to sign them, and you have to put your email in, it goes right to your email. You got the confirmation, you have to confirm it, and then you're allowed to go, so, yeah.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay. Any other questions?
So we just moved like 3 weeks ago from Marion County into Hendricks County. How do you move a business legally from one county to the next?
Are you a sole proprietorship? So you were registered with the Marion County Recorder, and now you're going to just want to go down to Danville, which is far, far away, I know.
It is kind of out there, yeah.
And fill out the same form, pay them $11, and then we'll send you the recorded documentation.
That's it?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it'll take an hour and a half, but it'll take care of it.
It's kind of the same thing, like right now my business is registered under Hancock, but it's an LLC, and I'm still gonna keep my business address at my house, but I'm gonna have a studio outside of my house in Marion County. Do I need to do anything different? Okay.
No. The big thing you need to pay attention to in terms of when you move or change addresses, you want to know where your main business address is. So if you're still doing business out of your home, then your main business address is fine to stay at that address. And you also want to pay attention to who your registered agent is. Now, if you're your own registered agent, then you need to make sure that the address that's with the Secretary of State as your registered agent, that it stays up to date. And there's a form on their website under division forms where you can go in and change that. And it's free to change it. You just have to fill it out now and then. So it's not overly complex.
What would it cost, and would you suggest to set up
your business as an LLC versus a sole proprietor?
In terms of fees or in terms of attorney costs?
Both. To have you set it up
Okay.
versus a legal Zoom.
Oh, versus the legal Zoom. I haven't looked at legal Zoom in like 6 months, so my pricing might be off. I want to say legal Zoom will set up your business for anywhere from $99 to $300, somewhere in that range. And I usually say that for an LLC, I charge around $500. The difference there in terms of what I offer versus what LegalZoom offers, which I think is what you're kind of asking.
Yes.
Why are in-person attorneys so expensive? Because you get that in-person experience. Instead of just filling out a form on LegalZoom and pressing a button and having a form just automatically drop onto your email, you get somebody that says, okay, Caroline, do you work out of your house or do you have your own studio? Okay, what kind of clients do you have? Okay, what do you want to do next? Have you thought about this? Do you need this? Whereas on LegalZoom, you go in, you are making your own decisions, which is not necessarily a bad thing.
It's hard.
But it is hard.
It is hard. Like,
It is
you have
hard.
to know your stuff, and the questions that they ask you, it's like, they should really make you take a class before you try and fill out information.
And I will also say that I've had, just in the last 8 months, I've probably had 4 clients who got their paperwork done on LegalZoom and something was wrong and I had to fix it. And then it ended up being almost twice as expensive for me to fix it as it did for them to get it done the first time, which is just, it was frustrating for them. It was a little frustrating for me because I really did want to just help them, but at the same
They
time.
registered me as an S corp and I had to change it to an LLC.
And then you, yeah.
Well, if you think about it too, like, we invest so much money in all of our other stuff, like, take the time to invest in the really important things, which is your business. Like, it's not necessarily the camera equipment or the gear or anything like that. Like, you have to be a legitimate business to be able to run your business as a business. And I know that I said business like 4 times, but
To write off the cost of all that gear,
it
you
is
need to be a
write-off,
good business.
But it's just
A real
easier to
business.
have somebody else go in and do it for you. And like she said, you get the one-on-one, the communication, and you know that it's done correctly. Like, you don't have to question whether or not LegalZoom screwed up, or you checked the wrong box, and like, now you're an S corp instead of an LLC. But just my 2 cents. That's
Yeah.
fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, because
Preaching to the choir here.
S corps, your taxes are due by March 31st instead. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And when we went to go do our taxes, I'm like, hey, you're registered as an S corp, which we, after that they did it, we registered us wrong. So it cost us more in the end, because then we had to go and.
You had to pay your account more money.
We had to do other paperwork to report, I can't remember the paperwork that we had to, well, I had never reported as an S corp, so I was able to fill out other paperwork and redo it. But that was extra steps and extra paperwork to then go back and do it differently, so.
Yes. And that's why.
I have another question about like the independent contractor and all of that. You had talked about having an assistant on random shoots and things. I do a lot of like school photography, and so I have like 4 months out of the year, basically 4 or 5, that I employ someone for those times. Is that still a contractor since it's not like every day,
Seasonal.
each week, you know, all of those things? Yeah, it's just seasonal.
It could probably be either one, honestly.
I prefer a contractor.
I would write it up. I mean, I would just make sure then you're documenting it, that your assistant is an independent contractor as opposed to an employee. And then in that contract, you're hitting all the reasons why they're an independent contractor. Yes, they have to show up on shoots when you tell them they need to show up on shoots, but other than that, their time is their own, as long as they fulfill any other responsibilities they have to you. You know, go over the, I know the independent contractor agreement I usually work with has, you know, probably 6 paragraphs about the lack of control the employer has over the independent contractor. That just kind of emphasize, yes, I'm paying them, yes, they're working for me, but they are an independent contractor. So I do have some giveaways. I'll get into those before my time's over.
I have no idea.
And once you pull their name, they don't go back in.
I don't see it.
It's fine.
Set the winner in
Oh,
the
right
box.
there. Do you need it?
Okay. First 2 things I brought are the same. I brought 2 copies of a book I published on Amazon. It's called How to Start From. This is It goes a little bit more in depth on a lot of these topics, so I'll make those away first. First one is to Audrey Wolf. And then the second one is to Color the Wind.
Who's that?
And then the last one is probably the nice one. It's a contracts package for a photographer, so it's $300 value. Yeah. It includes a client services agreement, a model release, the current release, the waiver of liability, and the telephone consultation for that together.
You should tell everybody about that.
Lori, Elaine.